That looks a little better. Test, test, test. All right, that looks better. What's good, everybody? Take Casey back here. We're going to do a wrestling review here, reviewing AEW's World and the last pay-per-view of the year here. I was out doing errands and stuff at the start of this, so I missed the 0 hour. I had no intention of going back and looking at it and watching it. But the matches they added sounded a little bit interesting. Mainly just that 8-man tag, Jet Speed and Jurassic Express against the Demand and Josh Alexander. That one I might go back and check out, but I didn't watch any of the 0 hour, so we're just going to skip past that. I'll go in chronological order here, but I got to backtrack a little bit. So I came home during the FTR Bang Bang Gang match, which was the Chicago Street Fight. The Discord I was watching along with, no one seemed to really enjoy it. I'm not really a big fan of any of these 4 guys. So I didn't go back and watch that. I only saw about half the match. I gave it 2 stars, which based on some people's review of it, seems kind of generous, but I didn't think what they were doing was really working. You kind of see what move they were setting up 3 moves in advance, which I'm not a fan of. The Stokely table bump was fun. That's really the only positive thing I got to say about it. Watching the full match is maybe a little better than 2 stars, but we're just going to stick with that. The opening match of the pay-per-view was Kazuchika Okada taking on Konosuke Takeshita in the Connie semifinal. So you had the 2 semifinals kicking us off here. This is the match they've been building to for a long time. One of the big issues with Okada in AEW, which I don't think is just an AEW issue, but is he doesn't try all the time. He kind of mails it in sometimes. It's got to be an opponent he wants to work with. They spent a long time building up this Okada match, that's Takeshita match, and he definitely tried in this match. I didn't think it was great though. I thought it was going pretty good. They were definitely trying to give an effort, but I think they were rushing with it being a semifinal. And then they kind of just smudged finish at the end, which is probably due to Wrestle Kingdom, with these guys both being the semi-main event and the main event of the Tokyo Dome. So I don't think they wanted anyone to lose clean. My prediction, I thought this was going to end in a draw, and then one of these 2 would win in the finals by pinning the 3rd guy, either Fletcher or Moxley. That's not what they did. They went with the screwdriver Don Callis spot here, with Okada taking up Takeshita with a cheap heel tactic. I think that finish would have been fine had they landed it, but the problem was whatever the kind of like Rainmaker counter that confuses Paul Turner spot was supposed to be, they just didn't pull off. And Paul Turner just saw him hit him with the screwdriver and then did a 180 and pretended like he was facing the other way, which really took the airs out of the wind out of the sails, I think, for this match. Ultimately, I went 3.25 stars here. I think had they landed that finish, maybe it'd been an even 3 3/4. I didn't think it was great. I think had they given it enough time, had it been the final, it would have been great. But with it being the semis, just a step below there, and then the botched finish really hurt it. The second match was the second semifinal. This was the match of the night of the pay-per-view. I think this honestly saved the pay-per-view for being pretty mediocre altogether. This was the only 4-star match I had on the show, and that was Kyle Fletcher taking on Jon Moxley. I didn't think this was like amazing match of the year, but it was. I think it was my favorite Jon Moxley match. I should have done this beforehand, but I'm gonna just look at my match filter here. Search Moxley. I think it's my highest rated Jon Moxley single match of the year. I think it's the only 4-star. I was not very big on Jon Moxley's year this year. The heel shtick wasn't working for me. Is this all in? Oh, I did ultimately give Moxley Hangman 4 stars, it looks like. Oh, that's the TV match. Yeah, I didn't like the all-in match. I did like the Dynamite Hangman defense. So that this is Moxley's second singles match that I went 4 stars on. So he didn't get it in quite under the wire. He had it much earlier than that. Sorry, I have to adjust my filters here on the fly, which I wasn't planning to do. So I went 4.25, so this was higher than that match. I thought They did pretty good work here. They did a lot of stuff. They gave this way more time than Okada Takeshita. I would have flipped the times if I were the booker, but they delivered here. Fletcher continues his outstanding year, um, which puts him in the running, I think, for the is it the Thez Flair Award for like most outstanding in ring work. I think given the year Takeshita's had, it's hard to catch him, but um, Fletcher somewhat under the radar. I mean, Fletcher has a lot of hype, obviously, but as someone that started rating matches full time this year, I was surprised how much Fletcher really stands out because a lot of his stuff is really good. I don't necessarily retain it, um, but marking him down along the way. There's just a lot of great he's done throughout the year, including this getting the best match out of John Moxley, in my opinion, on the year. Is no small feat. John Moxley is one of the best guys in the world. He's the ace of this company. So getting a better match out of him than you look at the guys Moxley's face this year, Darby, Swerve, Hangman, among others. Fletcher being the guy that get the best match out of him, I thought was really impressive. They told the story of Fletcher working the leg here, which they kind of came and went with, which is why I don't think I was quite as high as some people. I thought that they kind of picked and chose when that mattered, um, but it played into the end of the match angle and kind of set up the finals more. And I liked, although the screwdriver spot I don't think worked in the Okada match, I liked that it set up a spot in this match because everyone seemed surprised in the opener that the screwdriver was there, and that's because Fletcher planted it. Um, Getting ready for his match, he didn't see that Okada used it and hit it somewhere else, so he couldn't find the screwdriver. That kind of played into the finish here. I was dubious coming into the pay per view about doing four heels in the finals here. Um, but Moxley did just full on turn face, it felt like, between this and the finals match. And the crowd was firmly behind him. It worked. He became a sympathetic figure in this match, despite the year he's had and never really turning face properly. And it seems like the whole group is turning face, which will be interesting to see how that plays out because it doesn't necessarily feel earned. But with Moxley being one of the best, if not the best guy in the company, along with a lot of veterans in the group with Claudio and Pac, I think they'll pull it off just fine. Um, Storyline reasons might not be satisfying, but the promo at the end of the show, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. We'll get back to that. This match, the move of this match is Moxley did a sleeper slam off the top rope where Fletcher landed just on the top of his dome. Scary looking spot. He did the rest of the match just fine, so I don't think anything came of it. But that was really the only big high spot. I thought this match lulled a little bit in the first third, but they closed it off really strong. So 4.25 on that. Next was the tag title match we already talked about, FTR Bang Bang Gang. I think I have these matches. They're slightly out of order. I think next was the women's tag title match. The Babes of Wrath, Athena, and Mercedes Monet. You got three of, if not the three best women signed in AEW between Willow, Athena, and Monet. Harley Cameron's a big level below that, but I thought she held her own pretty good in this match. The problem, I think, with this match is just no one cares because I don't think fans actually care about these women's tag titles. I know I don't. They didn't feel earned. There's not really a division. You know, here you have two makeshift tag teams, and we're kind of doing the thing. Um, I've seen it online with High-End and Maya World on the undercard where we're acting like because they have matching gear that makes them a tag team. Um, to the women's defense, the matching gear does look good, both with those girls and the Babes of Wrath gear. And I think Willow and Harley are doing a good job establishing themselves as a tag team. But it just doesn't feel like a division. It just feels like a tacked on way to get more belts on the women because there's not really a way to get women's matches on these pay-per-views if they're not for a title. So we had this in substitution of the TBS title match, but we had the TBS champion in it. Like I said, good work. I thought this was a fun match. I went 3.25 stars on this. It's just hard to care about this division ultimately, which held it back. Next up, I believe, was the Darby Allin Gabe Kidd match. So this was Darby's return from injury. He was originally in the C2. He had I guess now it's the third best match in the C2 after tonight with Kevin Knight and got hurt. I believe he got a concussion. They never formally said what the injury was, but concussion seems about right. which is why it wasn't necessarily a long-term injury. But with the C2, the way they do it, you got to do 5 matches in 5 weeks. So if Darby has to miss 2 weeks, there's no real way to squeeze those other 4 matches in. So they had to take him out. Injury wise, they turned it into an angle here with Gabe Kidd, which I thought was pretty weak. I didn't actually watch the segments, so maybe the segments were okay. But what World End struggles with a lot, and this year was no exception, is the C2 takes up so much time that half the pay per view doesn't have any build at all, really. The next match after this is your staple of this pay per view, where it's throw a bunch of people together that didn't make the semifinals in the C2 into an 8-man tag. Um, Darby and Kid here still built off the Darby Death Riders angle, which in hindsight is a little weird with this being the show that they seemingly turned face on. But you got a bit of a blow off here since Darby lost to Pac. He gets the win over here in Gabe Kidd. This was a nice bloody affair. They did a double gig here. Darby's a great opponent for Gabe because Gabe's not that big. He looks bigger in Japan, and that's how he wrestles. But I think he's like 5'9", 5'10", and he's not that big. He's probably about 230. So in America, against the wrong guys, he'll look really small. But with Darby being as small as he is, Gabe fit the bill as kind of the powerhouse to throw Darby around. So they were both able to do what they do best. Darby hit a couple crazy spots. You know, what you would expect. I'm trying to remember. I'm blanking on what the finish was. Oh, it was Gabe was trying to choke him out. Darby was kicking out of everything. He hit a couple coffin drops. Gabe was kicking out of those. The finish was Gabe tried to put him in. I think it was a rear naked choke. I don't think he was going for the bulldog like Moxley, essentially being mini Moxley, and Darby reversed it into a cradle for the win. Good stuff. This was 3 3/4 stars. I think this is worth checking out. I think most people are probably a little higher on this than I was. I didn't think it necessarily flowed and meshed well together. But with Darby, you get cool shit, and that's always fun. Next up, they had what they called the Mixed Nuts match, which was everyone except Pac and the Death Riders that hadn't wrestled yet, taking on the conglomeration and Toni Storm. So this is the big exception to the women's division. The women can't get on these pay-per-views unless it's the title match or unless it's Toni Storm. And Toni Storm, clearly the way she's been booked, is clearly Tony Khan's favorite woman on the roster, and I think it's well earned. It's not that it's not earned, but she's a 4-time women's champion. I've looked it up in the past. She's never gone. I think she's only twice gone over 100 days without at least wrestling for the AEW Women's title since she signed with AEW. In both times, she was involved in the feud. So the first time was when they were doing the Outcasts, Ruby, Soho, and Saraya and her against Jamie Hayter. So she didn't wrestle for the title within 100 days there, but it's because her stablemates were, and she was actively feuding with the world champion. And then the other time was when Mariah May held the belt, and she was out for a couple months. What was it? She was out for a couple months to kind of sell Mariah as the champion, but clearly was coming back and was going to be the feud. So Toni never goes more than a couple months without challenging for the world title. So they got her in kind of filler stuff here with Mina, Shirakawa, and the tag division. I think she'll pretty quickly be back in the world title picture, especially because Chris Statlander's not really working out as champion. As far as this match goes, this was like a really fun kind of keep the crowd engaged while you transition to the next phase of the show match. They incorporated comedy really well with Orange Cassidy and Toni Storm. And this was just like a fun match. Nothing serious here, even though you kind of have, these were the teams involved in Blood and Guts, but it didn't feel like Blood and Guts at all. It was just 5 wrestlers out there kind of having fun, being goofy, doing some intergender spots, having a lot of fun. I thought this was 3.5. I thought this match was really fun. It's not necessarily worth going out of your way to see. But with this kind of being a subpar AEW pay-per-view, it did end up being one of the better things on the show, in my opinion. Next up, you had the women's world title match, Chris Statlander defending against Jamie Hayter. I feel like you say it every time Chris Statlander has one of these title matches, but it's just not working at all with her. The crowd doesn't care at all. She has her weaknesses, obviously, with promos and stuff. But what's weird about this run is I feel like the in-ring work is also pretty bad. Or not, maybe not bad. Bad's too harsh, but it's just very mediocre. Um, Going into the title reign, you figure, well, Statlander's at least one of the 3, 4 best in-ring workers they have in the division. But it's just not clicking. And I felt that with this Hayter match as well. It felt like they had 4 left feet between the two of them. So it's not all on Statlander, obviously. It's equally on Jamie Hayter, but nothing seemed to really flow. It just kind of felt like they were doing stuff and not doing it very well. The crowd couldn't care at all. Um, Statlander is so unover as champion. I noticed the crowd wasn't even chanting for her. They would do, the "Let's go Hater" chants. But then when it came to chant Statlander, stat, whatever, it was just polite claps. They wouldn't even say her name. Um, so as a face champion, it's bad. It's pretty dire. Um, the finish kind of came out of nowhere. It felt like this match was too long, even with that. I went 2.25 stars on this. I wouldn't be surprised if Tony Storm wins it like before the year even ends, just on Dynamite. I think they got to just pull the escape hatch on this. It's not working at all. Uh, let's see. I think we're already to the semi-main event after that. Yeah, it looked right. Moxley and Okada, Continental Classic main event for the Continental title. Uh, I thought this was really boring. I couldn't get into it. I think with the women's match being before this also being pretty rough, that didn't help this match. Um, and me not catching the show live from the start, I wasn't hyped given the semifinal matches. Although, like I said, I wasn't the biggest fan of either of them. Fletcher and Moxley, great, obviously, but it wasn't like so great. I couldn't wait to watch Moxley wrestle again. And I think kind of all the elements really, really hurt this match. Like I said, I found it boring. I was watching the match out of the corner of my eye in the second half while I was looking at box scores, because looking at box scores and reading statistics was more interesting than what these guys were doing in the ring. So one thing I forgot to mention in the Moxley match is when they were working the leg, they were doing this spot where Moxley had his leg trapped in the steel steps, and then when they loosened the steel steps, Moxley decided to face plant just right into the steps, and he legit knocked his own tooth out. Um, so I think he was in like legitimate pain coming into this match. I don't know if they numbed it up, had him on Novocaine or painkillers or whatever. Um, but he was moving slow, and I think they were being really cautious with him. And then don't give a fuck Okada reared his ugly head here and was giving like nothing in this match whatsoever. So I think they were being safe with Moxley, and Okada being frustrated he was losing the match here. Led to just a really boring, slow plotting match. It started to pick up a little bit at the end. I don't even remember what the finish was. I think Moxley just beat him clean with a Death Rider to win the Continental title. Which, in hindsight, it makes sense why they split the unified title, even though unified means combined into one. You don't break it up. But I think they pivoted here to give Moxley a belt for this face run. Because this year was so heel heavy in champions. I think they wanted the ace of the company with the face run to be a title run. There's been some murmurs that people aren't too jazzed to work with MJF. So I think Moxley is going to kind of be the 1A champion. If the MJF thing doesn't really work, MJF's going to be champ most likely until All In for Ospreay. I don't think they're going to switch the belt again in between those two. But it's off to a really rocky start. I don't think the build to the main event was great, so I think they pivoted here so they can still do the Okada Takeshita rematch for a title where Takeshita wins a belt from Okada. But they wanted to get a belt on Moxley here, and they've tried to really push the Continental title as the 1B to the world title. So I guess Tony just decided, rather than give Moxley like the national title or the TNT title and try to make that the 1B, that we might as well just do it with the belt that's already been established that way. Moxley got a good promo to end this match. That was probably the best part of this match, was the winning celebration promo. I don't think this match worked at all. I mean, if I went back and watched it um, with fresh eyes, not after watching a pay per view, I might be a little higher. I went 2.25 stars on this. I just thought I don't think this match was worth watching. I thought this was the worst match of the entire tournament, which is a big bummer in the semi-main event of a pay per view. Then the main event of your show was the four-way world title match. MJF, Swerve, Hangman, and the champion Samoa Joe. What happened, what you expected to happen is exactly what happened here. MJF pinning Joe to win the belt. I don't really understand why they did it this way and why they tipped their hand even. So they did the dynamite diamond ring gimmick that they do, and MJF has always won. He wasn't involved in that at all this year, and they set up a world title match for the winner 3 weeks from now. So obviously MJF was going to get involved in that. So they tipped their hand that MJF was winning the belt here. And I just think storyline wise, it didn't make any sense at all. And I think that really hurt this match because it gave no one really anything to sink their teeth into. Joe turned heel on Hangman. Hook turned heel on Hangman, cost Hangman the belt. I guess just because Toni didn't want to pin Swerve or Hangman, even though they pinned Hangman last pay per view. So I don't know why they wouldn't have just done MJF Hangman here in the third match, have MJF win the belt. I think they were just afraid to transfer all that heel heat to MJF, even though he's the top heel. So it really hurt these guys. The match they worked was totally fine. You know, it was you have three of the best guys in the world, and then Samoa Joe, who's been the best in the world, one of the best guys of the last decade. I think he's just a little too old now, but he was protected with three other guys in there that he just got to do his stuff. He didn't have to work a full match really, but it was just guys doing moves this whole match, trying to do cool stuff, but there was just no flow or story to the match really, in my opinion. Um, and then you got the predictable finish at the end. So I went 3 stars on this. I just think this was skippable. This was like exactly what you expected it to be, especially someone like me that hears the murmurs of storylines and beat for beats what they're planning booking wise, and this played out exactly like that. Which isn't everyone's experience. It doesn't necessarily take away from other matches, but I think there's a little meat on the bone with this match that for it to play out exactly as you expect was a bummer. I went 3 stars on this. I think your mileage can vary a lot on this depending on how much you like these four guys and how much you just like cool moves happening. But that's all it was. So if I do an average of all these matches, it's just over 3 stars. So that would mean it's like a six out of 10 show. I think that's a little low. I tend to grade a little lower on AEW, especially the second half of the year. I saw some people give that Moxley Okada match a 4. So I think me being so low on it really affects this. And I don't feel like it was a 6 out of 10 show. I would say 7 out of 10 is more fair. Um, Definitely weak for an AEW show, but a good show overall. I thought it went by faster than a lot of AEW shows this year, so that worked in its favor. But only one great match. Kyle Fletcher Moxley, I think, is the only thing you have to see. Everything else, you're not really missing much if you don't watch it. So, depending on your free time, how much interest you have in the show, I would say check that one out for sure. And then you're good. Other than that, Darby Gabe was a lot of fun. The mixed nuts match was a lot of fun, but not. I wouldn't say either of those were great. Kyle Fletcher Moxley definitely great. All right, that covers everything, guys. Have a good night. Bye. And it.